So, if you know anything about me and how I think about movies, I love individual films as much as anyone. I mean, this year in particular, Across the Spider-Verse, I adored. Past Lives, man, I have to do a video about that at some point. Oppenheimer, phenomenal. Barbie, I just did a video about. It's amazing. But one of the other things that fascinates me every year when I think about movies is not just focusing on individual films, but also focusing on what are all of these movies, the movies that are coming out in a given year, kind of saying together? What are the common questions that the films in a given year are wrestling with? What are the ideas that we're thinking about together as a culture? And if we do believe that artists are kind of the closest thing that we have to prophets in our modern day, what are the things that those prophets are wanting to explore? And this year, I think, as any year, there's some really interesting commonalities that have my mind spinning a whole lot. I think this is going to be one of those videos that I'm kind of making up as I go along, so bear with me, but I am just kind of wrestling through what does this theme mean. Okay, here's where I'll start. 3 nuclear explosions blasted across my screen when I saw Asteroid City in theaters back in June. One of them was in the movie Asteroid City, because the town of Asteroid City in the movie Asteroid City, that's kind of how Wes Anderson titles go, is located next to an atomic bomb testing zone. And every time a bomb goes off, it shakes all the buildings and the residents sort of look around and then go back to what they were doing. The second atomic bomb explosion that I saw in the theater while seeing Asteroid City was, of course, in the trailer for Oppenheimer, which is about the creator of the atomic bomb. And the third, and maybe this is stretching it because I don't really know what kind of weapons they have in 2,000 years in the future, was in Dune Part 2, which ends with this massive nuclear-looking explosion as Paul Atreides says some line about, "He who can destroy a thing has the real control of it." I thought this was interesting because, I mean, explosions are a pretty common trope in movies. I mean, they happen every year. But nuclear explosions, atomic bombs, those feel like a very specific idea, and I think a lot of the movies this year are engaging with it. Maybe not just in referencing the atomic bomb, but also in referencing what it represents. I kind of would dub the general theme something like The Entity. And yes, that's a reference to Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, which we'll get to, and I loved. But it's also about more than just the entity in Mission Impossible. It's about the concept of an entity. Asteroid City has a lot going on. It is easily Wes Anderson's most self-reflexive, meta-modern movie, and I don't blame anyone for not loving it. I kind of did, though, and I think part of why I did is that it is itself an enigma, which is ironic because the movie is kind of obsessed with enigmas. How do we make sense of things that are mysterious and have no answers? At the core of that is the appearance of a little stop-motion alien for 30 seconds that touches down in the town of Asteroid City, takes some rock, and then goes back up to a ship and flies away. And it leaves everyone in the town in turmoil and confusion and hysteria. The interesting thing is that the atom bomb tests, which are kind of happening in the background of the story, just on the margins of the town, kind of feel like a metaphor or a proxy in real life for what the alien represents in the story. In the same way that the sudden appearance of the alien in Asteroid City has left everyone with confusion and questions about their place in the world and what comes next after this huge thing has surfaced. That's kind of how the people in the 1950s were wrestling with the advent of the atomic bomb. What does this mean for us? What does this mean for our existence as humans? How does this change the world and our perception of it? In many ways, I mean, obviously, Oppenheimer is also literally about this idea. It's about the creator of the atomic bomb coming to terms with the gravity of the thing that he's put out into the world and the horrific effects that it will have. And also about the world at large wrestling with what this means, how our entire existence has changed forever. Something fascinating here is that I think you would kind of assume that with a bunch of movies about nukes or atom bombs, the common thread between all of them would be power, right? It would be about how people use and abuse power, how we gain power, how we, wield power over others. But I really don't think that's what these movies are about. I mean, Oppenheimer, for instance, he's not the one who presses the button to launch the bomb. He's just the one who makes it. And in Asteroid City, the nuke is going off in the distance. They don't have any control over it. But that's actually where I think the common thread comes in, because I think more of this is about control or loss of control in the face of something that feels huge and world shaking. Sure, I mean, for the person pushing the button to launch a bomb, or maybe even fighting on the side of the country that has the bomb, bombs might be about power. But I think for the average citizen living in a world in which the atomic bomb has come into existence, it's closer to something like the alien in Asteroid City. It's an uneasy enigma that reminds you that you don't have control over the universe, that things outside of your devices might change your life forever.
Some of our information about outer space may no longer be completely accurate. Anyway, there's still only 9 planets in the solar system as far as we know, Billy.
Except now there's an alien.
I'm sure you kind of saw where I was going a mile away with this, which is that, in the midst of all these metaphors about aliens and atom bombs, I think there's one very real, relevant modern day analogy, and that's the current advent of AI. It's flooding our social media streams, and I think in many ways we're kind of asking the same question that the citizens of Asteroid City were asking about the alien, which is, are you friend or foe or other? Now we can finally jump back to one of my favorite things to talk about, which is Mission Impossible, because with very prophetic timing, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning dropped just a few weeks ago, and I think it answered that question pretty definitively for its own context, which is, yeah, no, it's a foe. Tom Cruise is literally going to war with the AI. Any of the people in that movie who are pontificating about controlling it or using it for their own advantage or using it as a tool and, not doing the bad stuff but doing the good stuff with it, they're all bad. The only person who knows what to do with the AI in Dead Reckoning is Tom Cruise, and he's gonna kill it. It's kind of remarkable that this movie came out this month. I mean, talk about timing. Like, if they'd released it 5 years ago, I would have said that the depiction of AI in the film was cartoonish and too sci-fi and cheesy. But now it's like, oh dang, like that feels relevant, especially with all the stuff going on with like the SAG-AFTRA strike and the fact that actors are now trying to campaign against studios from using AI to replicate their likenesses. Come on. Also, that movie starts with a scene of a submarine imploding under the ocean, which I just thought was also crazy, but that's not relevant to this video. It was just like, whoa, what? Here's where I'm going with this though. All of these movies, if we look at Asteroid City or Dune or Oppenheimer or Mission Impossible, they all have different approaches towards how we should respond to this entity and what it means for us. But I also think that they have some vital things in common. Mission Impossible goes all in, very ballsy, on this entity is bad, it's evil, we need to go to war with it, and I really respect the guts that it had to do that. Asteroid City is more about our incapability of doing anything about the entity, right? We live in the town and the atom bombs go off next door, but we can't really stop them. And the alien as well, it just comes and goes as it likes, and we can't do anything about that either. It's more about learning to keep telling the story in the midst of uncertainty about what this entity will mean for us. Oppenheimer, I think, is a cautionary tale. It's about the ways that we, shouldn't deal in theory with things that will then be turned into practice. And we need to see the thing as an enemy, like in Mission Impossible, before we make friends with it. What I think that they all have in common, though, is a shared sense of unease, paranoia, uncertainty about how much control you have in the world, what this entity will mean for your life, and that weird sense of just being slightly off step with how things are supposed to be, because the world has been changed for good. There's nothing you can do about it, but day to day, your life is kind of still the same. Less of the drama in Dead Reckoning is about actually going to war with the entity that might happen in the sequel, or about what the governments are gonna do with it. It's more about that sense of unease and paranoia that happens as this entity literally starts to underwrite our character's perception of reality itself and make them uncertain that they can even know what's real. Asteroid City, I think, as mentioned, is very much about living in the midst of atomic anxiety or AI anxiety or other types of anxiety that make you uncertain about your place in the world, but you kind of just have to keep living and keep going even though you don't know what's happening next. And of course, Oppenheimer paints a very intimate, personal, individual picture of one man and the fact that the world has changed forever and he's the only one who knows it and he's the one who was responsible for it and he can't do anything to change it. If I had to sum up all of these movies and the feelings that they elicit in one example, I think I compare them to Bo Burnham's That Funny Feeling song. It's a song about the concept of living in a world that feels increasingly off kilter, but day to day you don't really know how to put it into words because it's just like, that's weird and different than I thought humans lived until now, and now that's how that is, and I can't do anything about it. The world's just kind of off. I think a key part of the uneasiness of living in a digital age is that you know that the world is dramatically changing on a daily basis in ways that it may never go back from. And yet also on a daily basis, you know that you'll only ever interact with the comically shallow, consumeristic incarnations of that change. It kind of leaves you with more sympathy for Augie in Asteroid City as he sits staring out a window melancholically, uncertain what to make of any of it. It feels like all these entities, like AI or climate change or anything else, they have the potential to either save or destroy the world, but they'll likely do neither, and it leaves you in this state of perpetual disquieted restlessness, waiting for the next penny to drop. I think maybe we all sort of started coming to terms with this sense of unease during the pandemic. I mean, COVID obviously was maybe the best distillation of this entity that we couldn't control, that we knew would change our lives forever, whether we liked it or not. And we also had this sense that we were living through history, which was something that many young people had never experienced before. So while yes, I think this pattern in many ways has some strong parallels to what we're thinking about with AI right now, I also think it's about a lot of the different uncertainties that we're wrestling with that make us feel completely out of control. I was kind of hoping to end this video with a sense of resolve or resolution, but I actually think that the lack of resolution in these movies, the lack of clarity, the lack of control is kind of what makes them resonate so deeply with our experiences. And me trying to pull some clean and tidy ending out of it might actually ruin that resonance. I think these movies speak to the restlessness and the sense of off-kilter feelings that we've all been having these last few years. And while I don't think that those feelings are necessarily going away anytime soon, maybe expressing them through art will urge us towards some form of disarmament, whatever that means. I would love to hear your thoughts, though. I mean, do you see any other movies this year kind of falling into that idea of the entity or lack of control or unease in the face of something that will change the world forever? I'd love to hear about it if you do. And also, what else? I have a Patreon. I do audio movie reviews and writing every week. It's fun over there. This was sort of originally an essay that I wrote over there a few weeks back. If you wanted to see it early, it's a good place. I recommend heading over. I just like having more people there, not for more money, but actually just to have more friends. If you made it to the end of this video, tell me which one you liked best. Oppenheimer, Asteroid City, or Mission Impossible? I think that's a fun prompt. I don't know. I think I'd have to say Oppenheimer. I mean, I really did feel like it was one of the greatest films of the century. So, I mean, I guess, yeah, I'd have to say I liked it best if that's the praise that I'm giving it. But I did love Asteroid City and had a great time with Mission Impossible too. Anyway, that's all to say. Thanks for being here, and I will see you in the next whatever I do. All right, bye guys.